So Frank, you've just got back from the Alex Volkanovski fight. Just tell me a little bit about what went down at the weekend and what happened.
Yeah, so we just got back from UFC 290 in Las Vegas, Nevada, at the T-Mobile Arena. Alex Volkanovski, Volk defended his belt for the 6th time, I believe. Fought Yair Rodriguez, got a finish in the 3rd round. Dan Hooker fought an incredible fight, battled his way back with a broken bone, something fractured in his face, and was able to walk away with a split decision against a very dangerous and very talented up-and-comer, Jalen Turner. So that one was a battle of the top 15, top 12, I believe. Yeah, it was a great weekend. It was a great weekend in Las Vegas. We arrived to Las Vegas the week before on a Thursday. We got in Thursday morning. We were able to go watch the UFC Fight Pass jits. We watched Craig Jones, the Rager, and the rest of his boys from the B team compete on the UFC Fight Pass. One of his teammates, the big fella, Yair Rodriguez, walked away, the champ, with an extra $30,000 in his pocket, which is always nice. And then Craig was obviously the main event. So Craig went out there and won in overtime, beat a very dangerous guy, and I believe he solidified himself as, could be off maybe the pound for pound, no gi, if not right there at the very top. So that was cool to obviously get out there, support Craig, watch him and his teammates compete, be around that atmosphere, because you don't really see that high-level jiu-jitsu too much anymore. So it was great to see that. And then from there, you know, the boys were able to stay at the Encore. That's where we were all week. The Encore, the Win, right there on the Strip. It was nice. Hanging out, talking shit during the day, and then training in the evenings. We base our training around the times the boys are going to fight. So 7:30, 8 o'clock every night, we were in there training at the PI. Got our work in, yeah, and got our hand raised 2 times, and that's what it's about. Had a cool after party. It was at the Win, or excuse me, it was at the Encore XS downstairs. Great time, and yeah, what more could you say? It was a really good week, you know, really good weekend. After that, we were able to jump on a PJ and head over, do a bit of training for a couple of days with Mark Zuckerberg and his team. That was incredible. You know, that was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for us to be able to get over there and really kind of pick his brain with some things. But also, what impressed me the most about Mark was he's given it a full crack. You know, he's properly training. He has 6, 7 guys with him that train with him that are his workout partners, and then he brought us in. You know, myself, Israel was there, Alex, of course. All got to do a bit of training with him, did some sparring with him. It was great. Jumped on his boat, did a bit of wake surfing. Man, he's really, really good in the water. He's got great balance. He knows what he's doing. And then, yeah, we kind of got to see that version of a lifestyle and what he does and what he has kind of put together for himself and stuff. And man, it was incredible. I think Lake Tahoe is a beautiful place. Can't really go into details about too much of what we did, but again, it was just a bit of training, some martial arts stuff, a bit of hiking. Food was outstanding. The scenery was great. The weather was perfect. Yeah, and it was a great way to cap off a very busy and hectic week.
Okay, so let's run it back to the preparations for Yair Rodriguez. Was there anything specifically that you wanted to plan, like kind of in the wrestling side, for Volk to kind of utilize against him, or what are kind of like the plans going into the fight?
So the plans going into the fight, obviously, when we all knew Yair Rodriguez is obviously striking his strong suit. We knew he was dangerous. We knew what he was capable of. He's got really good kicks. He's very unorthodox. But once again, Volk's IQ, his fight IQ, proved again why he is the best in the world, regardless of weight class. He was able to negate the strengths of Rodriguez and get to where he was good. Yeah, and credit to Joe Lopez and the rest of the team of Freestyle. They brought in the right looks. Brent Mumford, Josh Kuhn, Blood Diamond. They brought in Carl, obviously Van Roon. The Rager, Craig, was there for a bit. He played a role as well. So you know, we brought in the right guys for the right looks, the right tools, and yeah, we just built muscle memory, you know. So by the time I got there, they had that part covered. I focused on more of closing the distance, takedowns, cage work, getting them to the ground, and that's kind of how it went. You know, Volk was able to, the first round he got a takedown. Old mate threw a kick, Volk caught it, was able to kind of get to like a double leg position, scooted him to the cage, had his way with him. Got cut at the end of the first, but it's something that we had prepared for. We knew that Yair had a very good closed guard game, and he could pull guys in, use his elbows sneakily. So, yeah, fair play to him on that. You know, obviously he had his game plan.
So we've covered fight week, we've covered the build-up, a bit of game planning and preparations. Overall then, let's talk about what it was like at the actual fight, being in the corner and how the fight unfolded.
Yeah, so, being in the corner is always an honor. Obviously there's a lot of nerves that go into it, a lot of, I guess you could say nervousness, anxiety, excitement, everything kind of always roll into one. But it was myself, Master Splinter Joe Lopez, Big Eugene Behrman, and of course Craig Jones. Leading up to it, it was a great card. So the fights in the back we were watching, it was just unreal fights. So many first round knockouts, finishes, so many really, really good fights. You know, the fight before, the Pantoja versus the Brandon Moreno, was the best flyweight fight I've ever seen, period. One of the best fights I've ever seen, regardless of weight division. It was an incredible back and forth fight. I do think Pantoja walked away as the champ. He did enough to win. And it was just a great back and forth, man. Both guys, high level, grappling, striking, you know, wrestling. They showcased all kinds of skills in that fight. So having that fight leading into this one, it was big, you know, because obviously Moreno's Spanish. There were several he was Mexican. There's several Mexicans on the card. And then, you know, Yair Rodriguez, hailing from Mexico, he had a big support group, big group behind him. So, you know, but when you're in the back and you're in the moments like those, man, you really got to just kind of drink it all in. You got to really appreciate those times and stuff like that, because it's not always going to be like that. So, you know, we walked out to the cage, great atmosphere, great energy in that place, the environment. It was International Fight Week, so everybody and, you know, all the fighters and their plus ones were there, so it was packed out. And yeah, as soon as the fight got going, Volk was dialed in, found his distance, got a takedown, first round. Second round, same type of thing. Ended up getting him to the wall, hooking the leg, pulling him down. Did that 2 to 3 times. And he was cruising from there, smothered him on top, and then he was beating him up, so he was up 2 rounds. And then the third round, Yair realized he had to do something, so he was a bit more aggressive, which obviously Volk anticipated. Yeah, and then Volk, like I said, his IQ, once his fight instincts kick in and take over, he's pretty hard to read and pretty hard to gauge. And then again, he did his kick, landed the hook, hurt Yair. Yair went to the cage. Volk obviously fainted, kind of draw something out of him, and then he was able, the body did an uppercut to lift his head up, got to the double leg, and then from there, that was the beginning of the end. Got a 3rd round stoppage, and still 6 title defense. So credit to him and his team, his family, you know, the city of Wollongong back home. It was great, man, you know, and then after that, you get a bit of relief, you can kind of relax a bit. So many emotions go through you at that point in time with him. You know, again, his teammates, everybody was there supporting him, everybody back home. It was awesome. And then he immediately started to focus on what he thought was next for him, you know, whether it be the rematch with Islam or whether it be his next opponent at 145, Ilia Topuria. You know, I know he has a couple options. So, and we went in the back, and then from there, you know, you chat to the boys, maybe have a couple beers, you know, just really enjoy the moment. You know, team photos, stuff like that. Back to the hotel, have a shower. And then you get to the after party was cool down at XS. So big shout out to Sammy and the boys down at the Win and the Encore for putting that together. Yeah, man, it was, again, it's fight week. There's nothing like it, you know, especially fight day, especially after the fight when you get your hand raised. There's no better feeling for the team or anybody. So it was an awesome experience. A lot of people involved, a lot of moving parts. And again, 2 fighters and you walk away with 2 wins. It doesn't get much better than that.
So after the fight, there's a lot of talk about Volk being the GOAT, greatest of all time. What's your opinion on the kind of this status, Coach Frank? What do you think?
Obviously, when it comes to that conversation, I'm a bit biased, but I think it'd be foolish for anybody not to put Alex as the greatest featherweight in the history of the sport, based off of, you know, what he's done in the UFC with his run, but also how he's handled himself and, you know, the caliber of guys he's beaten. You know, he's always stepped up and took challenges, even when he didn't need to. You know, he beat Holloway the first time unanimously, gave him the rematch, beat him again, fought him a 3rd time, didn't need to, but because the naysayers were saying this and that, Volk said he needed to do that for his own mental, for himself, did that. And look what happened. You know, it was a landslide when it comes to that. You know, just the way he's handled guys, the way he handled Ortega, the way he finished Korean Zombie, the way he finished Yair Rodriguez. You know, him moving up and fighting Islam and taking Islam to the brink. And you know, many people say he won that fight. Obviously, on the scorecards, it didn't go his way. But you know, when you put all those things in together and how active he stays as a fighter, you know, and the stuff that he's able to do in fights and the adjustments that he can make, you know, you really have to take that into consideration when you bring up the greatest of all time discussion. So, you know, for somebody to say that he isn't, you know, to me, if you told me that, then I would love to have a debate about it, because in my eyes, he is. He's beaten every single one of the previous featherweight champions except for Conor McGregor. Hopefully that fight happens eventually one day. You know, you never know with the UFC and stuff like that. But I think the way he carries himself in and out of the ring, you know, the example that he sets for the younger generation, and also just the way that he just stays active, man. You know, he's never taken time really off. He's always wanting to get in there, and he's always wanting to prove himself, not even prove himself wrong, but prove himself right. He wants to be able to take on these new challenges, win or lose. You know, like he said before, he's a better man for it. So I think when you kind of spin everything like that into play, I do think you have the best featherweight of all time.
So the fight's it's passed. Volk's technically could be the pound for pound #1 and the GOAT. What's next? What do you want to see next for Volk, and what do you think Volk himself is looking towards next for his next fight?
What's next for Alex? What's next for Footy Volk is kind of whatever he decides. I know him and his team will have a discussion about what makes the most sense, whether it's financially, or whether it's for his legacy, or for both. You know, they'll have that discussion. You know, he has a couple options. You know, Ilia Topuria is a young up-and-comer who's undefeated, who's knocking at the door and reckons he deserves a shot. I think Alex will generously accept that offer and have that fight if he wanted to. There's also the rematch at 155 pounds for the lightweight belt with Islam Makhachev. Whether they want to do that in Abu Dhabi or whether they want to do that somewhere else, again, that's the decision that the team will make, and it has to make sense for Volk, you know. So he's got a couple options. They've been talking about maybe Aljo coming up from 135 pounds, so you just don't know. You know, there are several things out there. Obviously, his body needs just a little bit to kind of recover from a couple things, some niggles that have been bothering him a bit, but, you know, like I said, he's somebody that he's very hard to keep off the mat. So, you know, he's got a couple options of what he could do. A lot of it's going to depend on these next upcoming cards and how they shake out with everything going on. And then, you know, the UFC is going to make a decision, and they'll all sit down or they'll all do a chat and figure out what's best. So, you know, whatever they decide, whatever they land on, I'm all for. Back them 100%. So whether it may be Sterling, whether it may be Topuria, whether it may be Islam, again, Volk will be ready for whatever they throw at him. So I'm looking forward for the next coming weeks to see how everything shakes out.